well,
You just start with a pledge
would
allegiance.
anybody like to do it? Oh, thank you, Wendy, thank you. Will you would all stand, please?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So at this point, I'd like to ask our city clerk for roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Dean,
Present.
Councilmember Barnett,
Here.
Councilmember Felder,
Here.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Here.
Thank you.
So at this point, it's we've done the roll call public comment process, and I wanted to explain, of course, we have people here who, I have it on, not close enough. Oh, Jim, Mama. That's why I never went into show business. I could never find the microphone. I'm going to start with we have our public here, and then we'll go into Zoom for public comments. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that it all works. And I would like to also mention, people feel very offended when they can't get in on Zoom. We don't have anything against anyone. It's just sometimes the system does not work. So I'm sorry about that. So, let's see. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less under state law, unless otherwise permitted under the Ralph M. Brown Act. The merits of the matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the City Council at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the time the item comes up for council consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the mayor, please step to the podium and speak into the microphone. Begin by stating and spelling your name. Thank you. If anyone would like to step to the podium for a public comment, you may do so.
Is this working okay? Closer? This close? Okay. Josette Roseicher, 1110 Loma Court. We talk a lot about the free market and competition. In our town and valley right now, we have a couple of individuals buying most of our properties. At last count, Ken and Stacy Matson and some form of LLC of Matson LaFavor now own over 50 properties. The latest big buy was a beloved spot, the Depot Hotel Restaurant. As we have been told, it is a free market. No one can stop this from happening. No one can dictate who sells to who. It is the free market capitalist way. Now for a bit of a change of subject. Many of us have worked for years to persuade the City Council to create an ordinance to have a cannabis dispensary and to amend the ordinance to allow for the selection of a second dispensary operator. This is because we feel we need a bit of competition, a bit of free market that will provide clients with the products they need. Since this all began, there has been a change in the makeup of the City Council. We are now hearing that we do not need a second dispensary in city limits. We are hearing there are more important priorities. There is one going to open in Glen Ellen soon, or let us see how the first one does before we think about starting the process to select an operator for a second one. We've even heard from the operator selected for the first dispensary that he needs a year to get established physically and financially before having any competition. Additional reasons not to go forward with the process include there is no support. No one showed up at the first City Council meeting to discuss the selection process, and a perception by some new City Council members that some of us are just upset about who was chosen the first time around. Let me try my best to present the facts about these statements. Glen Ellen. The No Group is now threatening a lawsuit against the county. They are very well funded and organized. The idea this dispensary will open anytime soon is simply not true. There is no support. Yes, there's tons of support. People were blindsided by the comments and what went on at the September 8th meeting. No one expected this not to go forward as originally planned. We hope not to be blindsided again. And if we let free market decide if other businesses make it or not, why are we suddenly saying for this type of business we need to grant a monopoly to one operator for a year, or that we do not need any competition to better serve the public? If we want to put a plug in the free market where harm is being done, maybe we should figure out how to stop the Matsons from buying up our town and valley and giving the profits to organizations that promote denying the equal rights of others. In short, why is the idea of 2 cannabis dispensaries operating in a small, modified version of the free market so difficult to embrace? Plus, this is a matter of great importance to many of us using cannabis to cope with difficult health
Josette,
issues.
I'm sorry,
Thanks
you're over.
for listening. All done.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to get up and speak? Thank you.
Lily Gelb. Am I close enough? No? Lily Gelb, Lilyggelb. Hello, my name is Lily. I'm 14 and I'm a sophomore from Sonoma. I would like to thank the council for the opportunity to speak today and for all of the work that you do for our city, specifically for your commitment to sustainability. Taking the monumental step of declaring a climate emergency last year demonstrates your dedication to protecting future generations and young people. I am here today because I believe that the youth in our town deserve the opportunity to be heard about issues that impact us. I am asking that the Sonoma City Council choose to represent and serve our youth community by taking the initiative to form a youth council. Many towns, cities, and states across our country have youth groups or youth members participating in legislative discussions. Petaluma has a youth commission. San Francisco has one that was founded in 1995. Oakland's began in 1985, and Santa Rosa has a youth council founded in 1993. The California Institute of Local Government suggests that youth representation in governmental bodies has many positive effects, not only on young people, but also on the wider community. Encouraging youth involvement not only prepares teenagers to be civically and politically engaged throughout their lives, but it also creates what the ILG calls the double arrow effect: youth contributing to communities and communities contributing to youth. Sonoma is particularly in need of youth representation. The focus on tourism in our town, as well as the culture that surrounds the wine industry, often leaves the struggles of youth and disenfranchised communities to be ignored. In this environment, the teenage perspective is not only left out of consideration when constructing local policy, but youth are not considered a population of Sonomans that require attention from power holders. Implementing a youth council would assure that the issues which specifically impact youth in Sonoma are brought into political and public conversation, while ensuring that young people are present for these discussions, providing an important perspective to help find solutions that will have the best outcomes for all of our communities, particularly those that have been previously overlooked. I'm asking the council to recognize that young generations are our future, and for their policies to reflect this value, beginning with the formation of a youth council. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to step forward? Seeing no one, I'll close the public comment. So next we're going to be doing meeting dedications. Pardon?
Zoom
Oh,
for public comment.
yikes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I swear it's not my fault.
We
So now I'd like to go out to our Zoom citizens and see what they have to share. Thank you so much, City Clerk.
have Gil Latimer on.
Gil Latimer, Grant Court, Sonoma. Good evening to the City Council. I'm here once again representing the Sonoma Valley Cannabis Group. In a stunning moment at the September 8th City Council meeting, the CEO of Spark asked the City Council to table its process for a second dispensary in the city of Sonoma. Reaction from medical patients, recreational consumers, and the cannabis industry has been swift and strong. Patients argue that Spark's scheme would limit their access to quality products and competitive pricing. Many industry professionals feel Sparks request places the already struggling local cannabis industry in a bad light. It's not enough that this flies in the face of free market enterprise. Let's see how well this wine tasting bar does before we allow another one. Do not be surprised that, come a year from now, Spark will report that it wasn't very profitable and recommend the city extend the corporation's de facto moratorium on cannabis business even longer. Certainly, council members understand that entering into any such agreement could be viewed as restraint of trade. There is no waning of public interest on the second dispensary process. It was because of our civic interest that the City Council first entertained the notion of a second dispensary before it had even decided to make its award to one of the 5 finalists. As far as sufficient competition is concerned, first, it is important to understand that competition in the retail cannabis business is very different from, say, competition between local pharmacies that are able to carry the exact same products. And second, concerned neighbors now plan to file a lawsuit to stop the Glen Ellen dispensary project. There likely will be no competition anytime soon unless the city moves forward on the second process. Ms. Harrington, Mr. Harvey, and Mr. Barnett and Mr. Ding all voted to permit an additional walk-in dispensary. That is the legacy of 4.5 years of hard work by patients, consumers, advocates, and the city. This has been the democratic process in action, and it should be honored. We encourage the City Council to fulfill its commitment and move the dispensary process forward with no additional delay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latimer.
No one else is
No one
raising their
else.
hand.
Thank you. Pardon? You do have somebody? Oh, gosh. Okay, show business. So let's see. I think I may have skipped a couple of things, so I'm going to have to return to the regular meeting, which I have no reports. We did not have a closed session. We'll pass that. And at this point, I'd like approval of the agenda. Would somebody like to make that?
I move the agenda for proof.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Ding,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion
Thank
carries
you so
unanimously.
much. So at this point, I am. I don't know if anyone else has any meeting dedications, but I have quite a few, and so I'd like to start out with Susan Chu. She died September 26, 2021. She was married to Niels Chu, who was a very active member here in the city of Sonoma. He actually is one of the founders, I understand, of Mentoring Alliance. Niels Arthur Chu and her, she's preceded in death by her husband, Niels Chu, her elder sister, Mary Elizabeth Plunkett. Also, let's see, she traveled the world, which is wonderful. I'm pretty jealous of that. She was also a part of the Vintage House Senior Center, Fish. She is survived by her younger sister, Emily Weatherby, and her 4 children, Gordon Weatherby Chu, his wife Anne, Lisa Chu Rossi, Peter, her husband, Jennifer Chu Ord, Eric, her husband, and Andrew Edward Chu. I would like to just say she was a very big part of the city of Sonoma, all of, many hours of volunteerism. There's a young man born in 1949, Bob Torrey. He passed away September 20th, 2021 in Santa Rosa. He was with his family. Bob the Butcher, they used to refer to him as, and a graduate of Sonoma Valley High School. And he also owned Bob's Butcher Block, which is across from where Lucky's is. He was on Highway 12. Bob initially was married to Felice, a high school sweetheart. And let's see, I met Bob, my husband and I met Bob when my in-laws were here. They moved here to Sonoma, and they chose a house in Boy Springs, loved everything, and then they were crossing Boys Boulevard, and one of them was killed by an excuse me, a driver. So Bob Torrey, not even knowing my husband, although his in-laws then owned the Melody Room, and they came down to my mother's house and met my husband. I was not here, and they offered him clothes, everything that you could need, because he was alone up here, overseeing his mother's critical condition, and of course the stepfather's death. So I'd like to say thank you to him. He leaves many wonderful family members, and his wife, I think of 12 years, Leslie, and I would just like to say I'm very sorry about that. Also, someone who is really very important here in the city of Sonoma, Sally, aka Mickey Vella. Born Sarah Lois Wright on March 22, 1931. She was an avid sports person. She was a part of a riding club. She loved the outdoors. She loved design. She was a famous, she was very active in sewing, different sewing circles here in Sonoma. She worked at a soda fountain in Nevada where she met Ig Vella of Vella Cheese. And it's amazing. So they were married in 1952. She was one of the founders of the Church Mouse. And she and Ig spent many hours promoting Vella Cheese of various trade shows and at various trade shows and outings as the Ig and Sally Show. She spent many happy hours outside the home with with Tom and Ella's dog, Wallace, at her side. She may have loved Wallace the dog more than anyone else. Her parents, her brother Bruce Wright, and her youngest daughter Sarah, she is preceded in death by them. She is survived by her children, Diddy Vella, Chicky Vella, and Tom Vella. Ella is the wife. Grandchildren's Gabriel Luddy, his wife Stacy, Miranda Stoll, Andrew, Ross Kennard, Kate, Sherry, Marius Kennard, Shayna Valla, and Gia DeSoto. She is survived by many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I met her husband, Ig Vella. My background is in fundraising, and I lived in San Mateo County, and I would drive up here, all the way up here to get Vella cheese because I thought it was so special. And when I finally moved him here, he gave me $100 to run for the hospital board, of which I did. And he's just a great man. I think he left a wonderful legacy here in the city of Sonoma. So his wife, Sally Vella, whom I was very close to, and she made it to my husband's cookie list. So she was very special to us. Thank you. Consent agenda. Oh, yep. I'm sorry. Presentation. Presentation on Sonoma Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan by Sonoma Water. And this is, I'm turning it over to Ann DuBay. Well, what the heck? That's what it says here.
Ann DuBay.
Well, I got the wrong name then somewhere. Thanks.
Good evening, Madam.
Jay Jaspers.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Jay Jaspers, pinch hitting for Ann DuBay tonight. I'm the Chief Engineer, Director of Groundwater Management for Sonoma Water, but tonight I'm acting on behalf of the Sonoma Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency. I'm the Plan Manager for that organization. And the Sonoma Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency operates under the statutory authority of a recent legislation in 2015 called the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA as it's known. It's not a discretionary activity. It's required that we implement it here in Sonoma Valley because the state has prioritized the Sonoma Valley Groundwater Basin as a high priority basin. So anyway, that's kind of some of the background. The GSA, Groundwater Sustainability Agency, has been working over the last several years with its advisory committee, stakeholders, and its board to complete a very extensive document called a Groundwater Sustainability Plan. So I'll give you kind of a high-level status update of where we are, because we're entering into the last stages of this before we have to submit it to the state of California by the end of January. And I'll also just mention that we posted on the GSA's website a draft for public review of the complete document on October 1st, and that public review will extend through the end of the month, October 31st. We'll utilize the input we get from that, as well as input we've already received, to then produce a final report for our board's consideration at its December meeting. And there is a community meeting. There will be a community meeting via Zoom on October 25th from 4 to 6 p.m. And it's on the website, all of the information on that community meeting. So with that, I have a few slides to give you kind of a status update and a general sense of what we're trying to accomplish here with the Groundwater Sustainability Plan. This map shows the Sonoma Valley groundwater basin in which the Groundwater Sustainability Agency has its authorities, and it's the white or light area there. That shape and those boundaries are defined by the state of California. It's something that they determine, and it does not include the whole watershed from the ridge lines. It's really on the basin floor that the groundwater basin exists, that the GSA has management authorities over. The GSA, the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, was created under a joint powers authority with, you can see the member agencies here, including the City of Sonoma. Council Member Ding is the City of Sonoma's representative on the board, and we meet regularly. And there's also an advisory committee representing various stakeholder groups that also meet regularly to advise staff and the board as we march through different aspects of implementing the groundwater program. There's really kind of three steps in under SGMA. The first step we completed in end of June, as it was required 2017 to form the actual agency under Joint Powers Authority. We're almost getting to the end here for developing the first version of the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, and the statutory deadline is January 31st, 2022, and that's what I'll be focusing on. And then we have 20 years to achieve as groundwater sustainability in the basin, so till 2042. And groundwater sustainability is how we define it in the Groundwater Sustainability Plan. The plan also is adaptive, so it allows for being updated every 5 years. And so this is really, I call it the first version that we'll be submitting, and we'll be working every 5 years to update the plan. So groundwater sustainability plans really are long-term planning documents. They don't respond to current droughts or floods, and they're not intended to address surface water. It really focused on groundwater supply and reliability. And they provide an overview of the projects that would be needed, but they're not specific designs or construction plans or anything like that. It's not subject to CEQA. It's a planning document, but it's not subjected to CEQA. And it doesn't have detailed funding plans, but you'll see it does have a kind of a 5-year plan that we're pursuing for first 5 years of implementation. And the plan is really intended to answer these three questions. What are the basin conditions today and into the future? The plan has to achieve sustainability, as I said, by 2042, but it has to show that we'll be in sustainability through 50 years or 2072, which is a long way out there. And so we do our best through various assumptions and methods and models to look at that. But it again will be updated as we move along. Second is, are these conditions sustainable? And then how can the basin maintain or achieve sustainability by that 2042 date? So if we're sustainable today, we have to show that we're going to be sustainable through this whole period of time. It's not good enough to say it's good now, so it'll be fine. There are 6 ways we look at sustainability, and this is straight from the statute, and they have these cute symbols the state has for all 6. The arrow is groundwater levels. The next one in the top middle is land subsidence. The one with the little flask there on the upper right is water quality. And then the lower left is the volume of water, the storage of water stored in the aquifer. And the middle one in the bottom is seawater intrusion. Are you getting seawater intrusion coming into your basin, your freshwater basin? And the last one on the lower right is you have to look at, are there impacts from groundwater pumping that deplete surface water and ecosystems? And so those are the 6 things that we have to look at in terms of assessing how we're doing with sustainability. Just quickly, in Sonoma Valley, the good, 2 of them, we have pretty good news, and that is the groundwater quality and also land subsidence with pretty good water quality, groundwater quality, and really no evidence of land subsidence due to groundwater pumping. 2 are, could be better, as we say here. We have very limited data on whether seawater intrusion is occurring due to pumping fresh groundwater. And so if you pump fresh groundwater and the seawater intrusion from San Pablo Bay, if that elevation is higher, it's going to induce seawater intrusion and contaminate parts of your aquifer. So we don't have a lot of good information on that, and so that's something we really have to work on in this first 5 years. And then also, likewise, we don't have a lot of good information on pumping and whether it's really depleting surface water in the streams and ecosystems. And then the last 2 are not so good, and that's we see declining groundwater levels in 2 areas of the basin, and we've seen that for many years. And associated with that, as you might imagine, the volume, if your levels are going down, the volume of water in your aquifer is also depleting. So these are areas moving forward. The Groundwater Sustainability Agency is going to have to work with the city and other partners to try to rectify by that 2042 time frame. So part of the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, important part, is really identifying what kind of projects and actions we need to achieve the sustainability for those 6 metrics I just laid out. Clearly, water use efficiency is a big part of the plan moving forward. City of Sonoma, Valley Moon Water District have pretty well developed water conservation programs, but that does not extend to the rural groundwater users. And so I think we think there's an area there that we really need to work with rural groundwater users to bring funding, grant funding in, and other resources to help with water use efficiency. Agricultural water use efficiency is also something that we're looking at. Recycled water to use instead of groundwater pumping for agriculture has already been, 20 years it's been worked on here, and expanding that program is something that we also see as an area of activity that will help with sustainability. Bringing in surface water during the winter, when we have a lot of water, and every year we've analyzed Sonoma water from 1908 to current. Every year, even the driest years, even this last year, we had winter water that was available. And if we can modify our system to take that water and recharge it down into the aquifer, and aquifer storage and recovery is one way to do that. The city of Sonoma worked with us on a successful pilot study where we put that Russian River water down through the well and put it into the aquifer so then you can use it later. So that's one area. There's stormwater capture locally here and recharging that in your groundwater. And then we also are going to look at policy options for the GSA board. The GSA has regulatory authorities it can exert if it so decides on terms of pumping restrictions and things like that. And it can work with the county land use also. And so there are some regulatory options in the mix of tools that the GSA has available to them. And then some of these other tools are, that I kind of mentioned here, but setting limits on pumping, well metering. These are the things that the GSA, as articulated in the plan, is not going to jump into, but is going to be carefully looking at some options for the GSA board, should it need to, at some point as we move forward, move into this realm on including some regulatory options also. This will cost money, and the GSA, the Groundwater Sustainability Plan lays out a budget for the first 5 years of implementation until the next update of the plan occurs. That budget, annual budget's about in the low 1 million, 1.2, 1.1 million per year. And this kind of gives a breakdown. You know, there's costs for projects, planning, design, data gaps and studies, like figuring out the seawater intrusion issue and the depletion of surface water. There's administrative and operation costs, community stakeholder engagement, and then there's monitoring that has to be done that's required by the state that we have to do and produce annual reports. And then we also have to prepare for an update of the plan after 5 years. And the funding, you know, we envision is going to come from a variety of sources. Clearly, we're going to focus on getting as much state and federal grants as we can. This basin's been very successful. We've gotten over $2.5 million from the state to fund the Groundwater Sustainability Plan to date. And so we'll be very active and aggressive on that front. And then we'll be partnering with other local agencies on projects so we can defray or share costs. And then it's likely there will be fees associated with this as we move down. So the idea is to reduce those overall costs as much as possible. But we do envision that there will be a fee component to this. And the GSA has just retained a consultant to help out in the coming year on a fee assessment. And then, oops, I'm pointing in the wrong direction. It seems to be stuck. Is it frozen? Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so, you know, that's just kind of a very high level of what the plan is about and what the GSA is trying to do. We're getting to the finish line here, at least for submitting it. Look forward to any kind of comments you may have. And there's also the community meeting on the 25th, public review with the website. So we'd be happy to hopefully take any input you have or any comments. And with that, I'll turn it over to Fergie.
I want to thank Jay for being here and acknowledge you're involved in all the GSAs. I believe our public meeting is on October 12th. And
oh, did I get that wrong?
To get information out on the city's website so that everybody has the right date for Sonoma.
Okay, I apologize for that. Sometimes I get the 3 dates confused. Sorry about that, Fergie.
So does anyone have any questions? None? I do. Oh, I do. In honor of our young ladies here, page 11, recycled water expansion projects, existing and new contracts, new alignments. I see other cities with big, I don't know, containers of recycled water to be able to water your lawn. I still don't understand how that's done. And I just want to know, is that part of what you're suggesting here? Watering projects?
So I think the recycled water projects we're talking about and that we've installed, like at the school, is one, the new ball fields and out there, and mostly it's for agriculture. And
I
it's
see.
offsetting
Oh, GSA.
pumping.
Okay, I
Yeah,
got it.
it's offsetting groundwater pumping. You may be thinking about rain barrel capture of you know, off of the roofs, etc. And those are contemplated also as projects in the Groundwater Sustainability Plan.
Well,
too.
and I actually do see recycled water put into huge containers. I think that's up in Healdsburg. I don't know how it's working. I don't know anything about it, but I just thought our young women here would like to hear that something's going to be happening. And I think it's important. You know, I have a very not a large piece of property, but I fell in love with this house with this huge yard, and now we're really, it's, as a resident, it's very difficult to do this. So I'm really interested in the recycled part. So I don't know, are there any other questions from the council? You do, Jack? Your Vice Mayor, Jack Ding.
Hi, Jay. I just want to say thank you. So many years take care of the water issue in Sonoma County and Sonoma Valley. I have been with the GS and the board for half years, and I learned a lot. I know how difficult, how much challenges we have, but we taken step by step. We got it in. Even this afternoon, 3:30, I checked on the website. The final draft, GS and plan already on that. And also periodically you got the new information, new correction. I really appreciate. And underwater, groundwater is kind of, an asset. And also it's complicated technically. And this asset, I always treat it like an oil. And maybe it's not oil because if it's dry in the weather like right now, no any recharging, that it disappeared. Just like on the oil. And also the efficient use of the water is a priority for us. We should, make full use of the water. I treat it as the most precious resource what we have. And all the city the council join the program, Sonoma Marine the Saving Water and the partnership. That is wonderful. All of us participate for the Drought to Drop By program. And even last week, Mayor Agrimonti and I, we delivered 15 kids to the affordable housing group. We just want to show our community and how important it is. I hope everybody get ready and start it and make your comments on the website for that the GS final plan. And also don't forget to save the information because I don't think your server will keep this safe. But you can make multiple comments on that. Thank you again, Jay.
Thank you, Councilmember Ding.
You can, if you like. I think you have something on Zoom.
I think that's where we'll go. Is there anybody out there? Oh, I'm sorry. And is anyone from the public would like to comment on this presentation? Seeing none, I just want those young ladies to know we're paying attention to you. Thank you. I'll close the public comments and thank you so much. Is our Public Works Director, are you going to be speaking?
You have one more comment on Zoom.
Oh, I do? There is someone out there? No. So, okay. All right, well, thank you. All right, well, then I'm going to move forward. So, okey-dokies. I'm going to move forward to consent agenda. City Council. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the council or staff request specific items to be removed for separate action. What's the pleasure?
I would like to pull 4.3 and 4.4.
Anyone else? No? All right. So I think we still have to go out to the public. So if there's anybody here this evening, I'm here for public comment. Are you interested in any of these items on the consent agenda? If not, then I will close that and take it to our Zoom. Members of the public. No one. Okay, so if we've only pulled 4.3 and 4.4, could I have approval of the others? And then
Yes.
we'll go back.
I move to approve 4.1, 4.2, 4.5, 4.6 as consent agenda for approval.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Ding,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
So I'll bring this back to Councilmember Barnett. 4.3.
Well, 4.3 and 4.4 are sort of related. And so I was just curious if we could get an update for the public on, it appears that we're having difficulty retaining staff. And I just wanted to get I had more questions about the the numbers and the financial impact and sort of this current situation. And I don't know if there's a staff report associated with that, or
Would you like a staff report about the topic, and then we can delve into what we're doing to try to fill
Yes.
positions?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So maybe I could ask the Public Works Director to do a presentation on 4.3. Would it be okay? We just did a presentation on both 4.3
Yeah,
and
I mean,
4.4
if
together.
it's possible to do that, I feel like they're all sort of
Okay.
related. So yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Mayor Agrimonti, members of the council. Yes, these two items are related, but they are separate items, so I'm going to talk about them separately. They're before the council for separate action. And if it's okay with you, I will start with the second of the two. And this is an agreement for staff support services with Valley of the Moon Water District. And as Councilmember Barnett noticed, we are short-staffed, very much so, in our water team with the city right now. So what we've done is reached out to Valley of the Moon Water District, who operates a water system that's roughly twice the size of Sonoma's and has, many highly qualified water system operators, where we have one newly licensed operator and one water supervisor and someone who really focuses on meter reading, water conservation, those kinds of things. That's part of our water team. We have a lot of regulations that we need to meet, operating our water system, serving about 12,000 people. To do that, we need to take water samples. We need to do all the routine maintenance of the wells, the flushing of the water system, all the reporting. So we need help to meet all the requirements. And so Valley of the Moon can afford to share someone with us for about 20 hours a week. And that requires an agreement between the city and Valley of the Moon Water District to have a member of their team helping us out about 20 hours a week. And so that's generally what this item is about. And I'd be happy to go into any details that are of interest to the council. Since we are short-staffed in the water team at the city, our water operations budget, that is to finance paying salaries and benefits for a full staff, which we don't have. So we're not incurring those costs. So we can't afford to pay a half-time equivalent from an adjoining agency. And I do have Matt Fulner, the general manager with the Valley of the Moon Water District, here to answer any questions the council may have. I'd love to introduce Matt to the council, just so you know who we'd be working with as far as partnering agencies. And that's why I wanted to do this one first, so Matt can get home to his family. So come on up, Matt.
Would you like to ask? Okay, thanks.
Hello, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Matt Fulner. I'm the general manager at Valley of the Moon Water District. Thank you for the introduction. And as Fergie mentioned, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I can answer questions on the operations side as far as Valley of the Moon is concerned. Obviously, Fergie's going to be the city side expert.
Council?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question would be, so this is just one staffer at 20 hours a week?
It's whoever Matt
I mean,
can
it could
spare
be
at the
different
time.
people,
It'll be
but-
different people, and actually we think that's beneficial. Is say our one water operator wanted to take a vacation, was hurt, was ill, and couldn't come in on a day, and we need someone to be available. And if we just have one person at Valley of the Moon,
Right.
we could be in a problem there too. So we want to have multiple staffers at Valley of the Moon that are familiar enough with the city system to help us out. Yeah.
So,
This is very much a stopgap until we can get in a better spot measure. Yeah, it's
And
not
so
intended long term.
it's for 6 months. Do you anticipate it going longer than 6 months?
It's hard to say at this point. We do have a provision in the agreement that we could extend it for another 6 months if we needed to.
Would that come back to council, or is that part of the agreement that
The action before council is to authorize the city manager to
Right.
execute the agreement that would allow the 6 month extension. If the council wants it brought back after 6 months, that could certainly be part of it.
Does Valley of the Moon Water District have extra capacity to, I mean, is this difficult for you to share?
Yeah, so actually it's, we are currently going through a staffing study to determine, we're changing our operations as well. And so we on purpose held back 2 positions and left them empty pending the results of the staffing study. And, we're actually finding that we need to fill that anyway. So we're filling one of the positions and only leaving 1 empty. And when we do that, we'll have absolutely no problem. And really, in any case, we'll have no problem meeting 20 hours a week. It'll just be a little tighter until we get that position filled. So.
And I noticed in the agreement there's an overtime rate. These would not be considered overtime. This would be
That's correct.
for
So
you guys.
the normal operations would be during business hours. We would not plan to do anything on overtime. Overtime would only occur if a situation necessitated it.
I'm sure you can understand operating a water system. There's a bunch of routine things we can plan on and schedule
Right.
to do regular business hours. And then there's the water leak that comes up and we're out there trying to do repairs and it takes longer and it goes into overtime. That's why we have an overtime provision in the agreement.
So sort of on an annualized rate for just this one worker, so if it's 6 months, it's $65,000 at half time. That's sort of like an annualized rate of $260,000. Is that sort of, if we had this worker full time, is that sort of what that costs the city all in? Or when I noticed in the fiscal impact, it said that we haven't filled positions, and so we have this in our budget, but is that typically the sort of expense associated with one of these? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because it's similar to the other one, where basically these are,
My
high
understanding,
costs.
I think someone's answering.
That would not be similar to a typical,
So we're paying for the. I mean, if we had our own worker, obviously it'd be.
yeah, it would be less, yes.
So at some level, there is a financial impact.
Yeah, except for the vacancies. So
Okay.
I actually did a comparison just to see where we are budget-wise. And for right now, it is, with the vacancies, we're okay. If we can fill the positions, then, of course, the need would go away, so.
So does the Vice Mayor have a question, or you're?
oh yeah, my understanding from Council Barnett is, except for the labor costs, do you have any additional facility costs provided by the Moon of the Valley Water District? That is because, in tuition, $260K, that for 1 year, it's kind of a decent, significant number for us.
Right, and it's hard to put a dollar amount on the importance of quality water for the community. And I know it seems like a lot for 20 hours a week for, half a year. If the city had water quality violations because we didn't have enough people operating our system and doing all the testing and the chlorine and all that we need to do, it would be much more costly.
I understand. Yeah, we need to use some of the lab, those kind of analysis, this system or facilities. Okay. Thank you.
One other point of clarification, if I may, is we don't intend to max out the number of hours every week. The intention really is to meet the city where the needs are. So, make sure that we've got an operator that can do sampling and understands, your bacteria sample siting plan, where everything is, help with your systems checks and make sure that the wells are being taken care of and that there's always a constant chlorine residual, that kind of thing. Really make sure that you're not running into regulatory problems and then stop there. Leaving a reserve for, okay, the leak we need to respond to, we can still do that on regular time hours at our fully burdened rate.
Could I ask the city clerk, is Mr. Fulner being heard? He's not that close to the microphone.
By the individuals in the council chambers probably, but probably not very clearly on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Apologies, I'll speak closer to the mic next time.
Has there ever been, I mean, this isn't totally relevant because clearly this is going to be a stopgap to continue to provide the high level of water for our customers here. But has there, perhaps along with our priorities, we have our council goals in terms of valley-wide, has there ever been discussion about consolidation? I mean, it seems odd to me that we have 2 water systems you know, we have our Sonoma water system, and then we have Valley of the Moon surrounding the city, and we're all sort of interlinked. And again, I'm new to the council, but has that ever been discussed historically?
Yes.
Okay. Well, perhaps we need to discuss that again. Yeah.
So are we ready? Are you ready to move on?
Yeah, I mean, I have some concerns about the costs, but at this point, it seems like that's, you know, we need to continue. It's sort of required at this point.
Thank
but I
you.
would like to further discuss this.
Thank you. Mr. Felder?
Okay.
Nothing? Okay, so I think at this point, I'm looking for a motion to, we don't take the next one, we have to do this one, is that right?
Well, yes, I think what we're trying to do is just do one staff report for both, but
Right.
since she just did it for the one item, then I think you would just see if there's any public comment and then ask for a motion.
All right. Okay, so I'm taking out to the public. Seeing no one here rise regarding this issue, I will now take it out to Zoom.
We do have one individual who still has his hand raised, or their hand raised, Perry. Let me switch it over. There we go. Perry, you'll need to unmute yourself. We won't be able to hear you unless you unmute yourself, Perry. You should be able to speak, Perry. We show that you're unmuted.
What you see?
We can hear you.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
I do not have a public comment on this one. I had a public comment at the very beginning of this meeting, or my hands raised was ignored, so I'm not commenting on this.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to close public comment, and I think at this point, I need a motion for this. And
Yeah. Can we move to approve both 4.3 and 4.4?
we haven't discussed 4.4.
Well, actually, you didn't end up discussing, what was it, 4.3? You actually didn't discuss or offer for public comment.
For 4.4? Or actually, we did 4.4 first.
We did 4.4,
right? So,
and you haven't
okay,
done 4.3.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, I thought we were on 4.3.
No, it got a little confusing, but I think at this point you're looking for a motion to approve 4.4,
Okay.
and then we can go back to 4.3.
So move to approve 4.4.
I second.
Oh, I said, I guess I made the motion. Wow, power. Could I have a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Ding,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
So now we are going on to 4.3. Is that what, I thought we were on 4.
Yeah, yes, you're on 4.3,
Thank
if you
you.
like.
Yes,
And I-
and thank you, Council, for that accommodation so that Mr. Fulner can go home to his family. So 4.3 is on the same general topic of being short-staffed in the water team for
Right.
City of Sonoma. So we have been without a regular city staff water supervisor since the beginning of 2021. So we have a contract with waterTALENT, who specializes in providing qualified staff to help out agencies with water system operations. Since the beginning of the year, we had a different water system operator, water supervisor for the first 6 months of the year. He went back to Southern California to be with his family. Now we have a different waterTALENT provided water supervisor helping the city out. This gentleman, again, a lot of experience. Tim Tillery is down from Oregon, staying in the area to work for the city full-time and serve as our water supervisor. and to continue that relationship for the duration we think we'll need it. And this would renew the contract and also provide the ability for that water talent employee to operate city equipment. It's very challenging to serve in that role without being able to operate any city equipment. So it changes the contract so that that water talent employee can operate city equipment and also improve some of the provisions in the agreement to benefit the city. So that's what's before the council tonight, to amend the agreement with water talent and extend the duration of that agreement for the water supervisor position.
Thank you. So I think, Mr. Barnett, you
Yeah.
asked this question.
And again, I just sort of pulled these together. I mean, similar situation to the previous item. Do you anticipate after, I think it was 9 months, creating a situation where we don't need to continue to contract with Water Talent or Valley of the Moon Water District?
I sure hope so.
Is the issue, is there just not enough qualified workers out there currently in this arena? Are we not paying enough? What?
Great questions. We did do 2 recruitments for water supervisor when the position became vacant. The first one resulted in 1 applicant that we interviewed and chose not to offer a position to. You know. And then the second time, we really put a lot of effort into the recruitment, making sure everybody got a flyer in their mailbox that met our qualifications and all that. And we got 0 applicants for the second recruitment.
Well, again, I'm, this is sort of required to move forward with these items to continue to offer the high quality water to our customers. But in the future, it would be great if we could, keep it all within house. I mean, at this one, I think it's like a $320,000 a year annualized rate. The previous was a $260 annualized rate for just 1 employee, and I just feel like that's costs we have to bear currently, but long term, I don't think that's sustainable. So, I move that we approve after public comment.
So thank you. I just wanted to remind us, we do have a resolution in this, and we didn't do it on the last one. We approved, but we didn't say the word resolution. All right, I just wanted to make sure. I thought I had to hear the word. Okay, right now we're going for public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on 4.3? I don't see anyone, so how about we go back to Zoom? No one. We will close the public comment, and what is the pleasure?
I move that we approve item 4.3.
I'll second.
May I have, may we have a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Ding,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you all. So at this moment, I'd like to take a 5-minute recess before we go on to 5.1.
Perry, if you would like to give your comment at this time, you've been added to the meeting. She hasn't unmuted herself and her hand is not up, so I'm not
Okay.
sure if she's, so if you'd like to move forward, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we have to, we have to move on. So I'll close the public comment. And I'm going on to 5.1. And before we start 5.1, is this our city manager? You'd like me to state that each one of us, either we have or have not met with anyone?
Yes, we just thought maybe after the staff presentation, but before the public
Yeah, I
hearing,
think that's
that
important.
you just report if you've met with any of either
Okay.
the applicant and or the appellant.
Right, and I have not met with either.
I have met with both the applicant and the appellant.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
I have met with the applicant, the architect.
I met applicant architect Robert Bowman.
Thank you. I'm glad. Now everybody's taken that record. So, me and my papers. So I am going to announce the item, discussion, consideration, and possible action to adopt resolution denying an appeal of the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission's approval of applicant PN 20-081- a design review application of Robert Bauman for a 164 square foot addition to a previously approved 3,479 square foot residence and an 872 square foot addition to the previously approved 923 square foot patio located at 236 East Spain, pursuant to section 15301 of state CEQA guidelines. The remodel of an existing single-family residence is categorically exempt from the provisions of CEQA Class 1 existing facilities. So I'm going to now turn, I think, oh, I'm sorry, I almost missed you, Ms. Atkins. And I'd like to turn this over to our Associate Planner, Wendy Atkins, for a staff report. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Agrimonti and council members. This project property is located on East Spain Street, in between 2nd Street East and Las Casitas Court. This is an appeal of the actions taken by the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission 9 months apart. Here is the approved site plan from the November 2020 hearing, and the area in public shows the addition. Here's a site plan from the August 2021 Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission meeting. Again, the addition is shown in purple. This site plan shows the patio area addition in pink. This is the elevations approved in November of 2020. Highlighted in blue is the 17-foot tall addition, which is 16 feet long, and highlighted in green is the 13-foot tall addition, and it's 13 feet long. This is the site plan or the elevations from the August 17th, 2021 meeting. Again, the blue area highlighted is the 21-foot long addition, which is 17 feet tall, and in green is the 13-foot long addition that is also 13 feet in height. Following the close of the public hearing, the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission held a discussion and suggested the applicant meet with the neighbors to try to resolve the issues presented at the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission meeting. That were presented by the neighbors to the east regarding the remodel being incompatible with the surrounding properties. The Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission voted unanimously to approve the project as submitted, with the recommendation that the architect meet with the neighbors during the appeal period. The design review modifications that were reviewed by the Design Review Commission in August consisted of modifying the previously approved 5 dormers to have curved roofs and arched top windows to increase the natural light in the home. The existing asphalt composition shingle roofing was replaced with a standing seam metal roof. The existing vinyl windows and doors were replaced with new aluminum clad wood windows and doors, or steel doors and windows, either in conjunction with or in place of the aluminum clad units. On the south elevation, 2 windows were added. Also on the south elevation, the shape of the windows was revised to have a curved window, and the pergola was removed. On the north elevation, the existing windows were replaced with a bay window pop-out. And on the west elevation, the new addition at the rear of the property was extended by approximately 5 feet, and a new window was added. Because the property is located in the historic overlay zone and the requested additions increased the floor area more than 200 square feet, a design review application was required. A historic resource evaluation was prepared in March of 2020, which demonstrated that the residence does not qualify as a historic resource. On the screen now are a couple of pictures from the neighboring property to the east, one of the appellant's properties. The picture on the left of the screen shows the story poles on the subject property where the view would be blocked on the adjacent neighbor's property. And the picture to the right of that shows the story poles from a second story of the property to the east. So there are certain findings that need to be made in order to approve the project, and I'm just going to summarize them. The project complies with the applicable policies and regulations as set forth in the Development Code. 2, on balance, the project is consistent with the intent of applicable design guidelines set forth in the Development Code. 3, the project responds appropriately to the context of adjacent development, as well as the existing site conditions and environmental features. 4, the project will not impair the historic character of the surroundings. 5, the project substantially preserves the qualities of any significant historic structures or other significant historic features on the site. 6, the project substantially complies with the applicable guidelines set forth in the Development Code. And 7, the project substantially complies with the applicable Secretary of Interior standards and guidelines for treatment of historic properties. The findings outlined also are contained in the resolution that's before the council this evening that is recommended for approval. The resolution denies the appeal and grants approval of the design review application. So staff's recommending the city council conduct the public hearing and adopt a resolution that denies the appeal and grants approval of the design review application as approved by the Design Review Commission. Thank you. That concludes staff's report.
Thank you so much. So there is a process here. So the first part of it, of course, was hearing from Ms. Atkins. The second is to turn over to the appellant to give brief presentation, 5 to 7 minutes. Mr. Toy, can I announce the names of the appellant? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure. Michael and Susan Alberigi, and also Alan, I'll give an address, 367 Las Casitas Court, Sonoma, and Alan and Karen Sadhai, I'm sorry, 363 Las Casitas in Sonoma. So at this point, part of this process is you may speak give a presentation between 5 and 7 minutes.
Madam Mayor, can I ask staff a real quick question?
Sure,
Clarification
absolutely.
question. Wendy, thank you very much for that staff report. I just had a quick question for clarification. It says, because the property is in the historic overlay zone and the requested additions increase the floor area by more than 200 square feet, that's why a design review application was required. But elsewhere it said the floor area would only be increased by 164 feet. And so I was curious.
Right. So originally, back in November of 2020, the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission approved an addition that was more than 200 square feet. Then the applicant came back later in this year and asked for modifications to what was previously approved. And so that's why.
So this isn't like a separate application, it's a modification of the original one?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And if I would, I'd like to ask the appellants to step forward if you are here this evening.
Please speak very closely to that microphone. It's very touchy. Thank you.
And you're going to be, there's a timer on, is that right? Thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
I'm Michael Alberigi.
I'm Susan Alberigi. I'm Alan Sadhai. And first, just for a minute, I'd like to introduce us. We're people that have lived for the last 36 of our 52-year marriage in Sonoma. We have family here. We've run a business on the plaza, and we are very familiar with the community. So I just wanted to let you know that first.
And
Thank
we're not really asking, I think, for a lot. We said the last time we were here that everybody has a right to remodel their place, and I just think they should do it within some reason. This is a very large project, and all we're asking is to have it the 4'6" and the 4'6" back to the original thing that was approved in October of last year. I think it was October. That's all we're asking, because it's gone way too far into our backyard, and where the sunsets are being ruined. I mean, the whole, and then when they get the tin roof on there, the heat's going to come. It's just not asking that much. Get the project done and get it done fast. Just try to cut this thing back a little bit to what it was originally approved. Unfortunately, we're not in town. We missed the Zoom meeting. We made a mistake.
We did not see
the first one.
see the card, the
Yeah.
little,
Like I said,
postcard
to
say that there was a meeting. So that's our fault. We missed the first meeting. Otherwise, we would have been here.
and Alan and Karen happened to purchase Susan's mom's condo, which is right next to us. So they've been there since '78 and passed away, obviously. So we've been there in this neighborhood for a long, long time. We bought that in 1997. We originally lived on Castle Road and downsized and moved there. And now we're just losing a lot of privacy.
Light,
mostly
air,
light and air.
privacy.
And this mass is just too big. It just needs to be shortened a little bit and get on our way. That's what we would like. That's all we're asking for. Alan?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Just to reiterate, we are asking just that the council approve what was originally approved and not the additional square footage. It does block a lot of the light coming from the backyard, and in my opinion, it's going to devalue our properties, even though this is a very large property. I'm sure Mr. Bauman's design is going to be beautiful. It's going to add value to that property. Our properties, I don't think so, because there's going to be a big wall blocking light, blocking views. And I say that from my experience. I've been a residential real estate appraiser for the last 30 years, and I see this a lot. So all we're asking is that the council go back to what was originally approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to turn this over to the applicant. The home, I understand it's a residence of it's a Janus residence, and Mr. Bauman will be presenting. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Good evening, council members. And let me thank you for meeting me at the property. And Mayor Agrimonti, I'm sorry that we couldn't get to meet. I know you're very busy, though. I am here with Mary Clark Janus, the property owner, and the contractor, Tom Thornley. So my intent is not to reiterate what you've already read and what Wendy's done a great job presenting. There's just a few points that I would like to make. The unanimous approval from both DRHPC hearings, at those hearings, they were very much in favor of the design. To alter the design would be to compromise the architecture. This is a beautiful, simple, rectilinear building, and that's one thing that we wanted to preserve. The objection that the neighbors have to the project is about 20 square feet, 21 square feet, rounding up, of their view of the trees on the other side of my client's property. 20 square feet is about the area of these posters. That's the equivalent of 20 square feet. So when they say that their view is being ruined, I think that's a little bit extravagant. What wasn't mentioned at the last DRHPC hearing, it was recommended by the DRHPC that we meet with the owners, which we did. We went further to offer a compromise of landscaping that would have cost my client $10,000, and the result of that landscaping can be seen in these boards. The black box shown in the upper image is the area of objection. The lower image shows landscape screening that would have solved blocking their view of our roof. In both, you can see the black box and the proposed landscaping. They rejected our compromise. So since then, right here, that black box is roughly 20 square feet. And this black box is roughly 20 square feet. Since that August 17th hearing, it's important to point out the costs and delays that have been incurred by my client that total roughly $22,037. And that is broken down into administrative fees by my firm to deal with this appeal, to meet with council members, to prepare a presentation and so forth. The landscape architect, another $910 to prepare a compromise proposal. And then a construction delay of about $16,000, 2 months of time. So to do anything other than that landscape compromise would require significant design fees, not just my firm, but the structural engineering firm, and then another 3-month process to go through design review again. Because if we were to change the design, we would be required to go back to the DRHPC, which would then be another 3 months of construction delay and an unnecessary design revision. The second point that I really feel is important to make is the emotional stress that's been incurred by my client. And in addition to the delay of construction, the uncertainty of what's going to happen with all of this, about 4 hours ago, we were presented with another curveball. That being the possibility, or I should say, the notification by planning staff that Patricia Cullinan, who is here in the audience, is going to request that this project be considered historic on a local list. We have already presented the HRE by Cara Brunzel, a qualified architectural historian, and I just wanted to explain her qualifications. She meets the Secretary of Interior's professional qualifications for both history and architectural history. A master's degree in public history, and worked on multiple facets of historic preservation and cultural resource evaluation since 2007. I won't continue, but it's quite a long list of her recommendation or of her credentials. So we found out about this about 4 hours ago, that this is another potential curveball being thrown at this project. So we contacted Cara, and with such short notice, she couldn't change her plans to be here tonight, but she did put together information that we could present. And I feel like I have to do this because I have no idea how this is going to proceed. I don't know what Patricia's going to say, but I was informed by planning staff that she's going to request that this be considered for a local list. So I'm going to read what Cara wrote for us. The history of this property is certainly interesting and significant. However, as demonstrated by the historic resource evaluation, the current buildings do not retain sufficient integrity to convey its character as a historic planing mill. It would be wonderful if everything could be saved, everything old could be saved. However, when we are working under CEQA, it's important to remember that there are standards that must be met for integrity as well as significance. The property does not meet the standards for listing at any level because of the numerous substantial alterations as well as demolitions of most of its buildings that were undertaken outside the historic period. I recommend honoring its place in Sonoma history with a plaque, which we have and will be replaced on the side of the building. Interpretive materials prepared by local preservation groups would also be an appropriate acknowledgement of its importance. A requirement to preserve existing conditions, however, simply would not make sense in this case because the current buildings do not represent the historic character of the property. So my point on this one is that whatever it is Patricia Kellenan wants to propose be done with this house, it's not germane to what we are talking about tonight. We're talking tonight about the appeal. So that concludes the points that I wanted to make. And I just wanted to offer that if you have any questions about the materials that were submitted or anything that I've said, the contractor would be happy to respond to the historical integrity or lack thereof of this building, because he's firsthand been hands-on, or even questions of the owner. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Baumann. So, at this point, I'd like to open this for any comments or questions.
Yeah, unless you have any questions just for council of
Well,
anything the
yeah, that's what I
applicant or
have here.
appellant said, right?
Do
Or of staff.
you have anything, Kelso? Bob, check? No? Okay. Open for public comments.
Okay, Patricia Cullinan. I've been announced. I'm not here to support the appeal. This project has successfully gone through the regulatory process, which I explained to my neighbor, with the information available to the different commissions. I am here to discuss the oversight in a historic resource evaluation. I gave you guys something that showed that the building was considered a local resource in 1998. The Adler building has had inadequate historic reports on several occasions. The most recent was Ms. Brunzel's historic resource evaluation, which she overlooked something that was on the state list. The report, the report overlooked the building's importance as a local resource. I provided you with the State of California record. It was part of the overlooked information. I requested that Adler, a property, be listed as a historic resource if there was a list done, and I realized there is a plaque. Maybe we can put that on the street, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tom Thornley. I'm the general contractor on the project. I had heard that, we heard, as Robert mentioned, the last minute we heard that Patricia was to be making these comments she did tonight. I felt I needed to address them. I'm 76 years old. I've won over 24 awards for historic preservation projects. I've been at this a long time. These are my comments about this building. The building has been heavily altered over the years. What is left of any level of architectural merit has changed beyond recognition. The door and windows themselves, their locations have been changed. What is left is nothing more than a T111 box, a plywood box. We found remnants of the original sign on the gable end. We shared those with Patricia. We shared them with the Historical Society. It allowed us to determine the orientation of the building. It was one of the benefits of finding those remnants. The building was originally oriented towards the railroad, so we were surprised to see this sign in the back. But by the way, we're not moving the building. We're keeping it exactly where it is, so we're not changing that orientation. I think most of you have visited the site. You've seen the remnants of the sign. A handful of boards with about a half a dozen letters painted on them. This does not qualify it for local listing. We appreciate Patricia's sentiment, but it is simply not supported by the HRE and not supported by the facts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Trying to think here. We're getting a lot of different details on here. We have open public hearing.
We need to take Zoom if there is anyone. We just need to open it to Zoom.
I'm not even at public comments yet. Somebody, I think it's just.
This is public comment.
Just.
Oh, yeah, you already opened the public hearing, so that,
No,
I
that's
think
all right.
you're done with the people in the chambers, and it's just Zoom if there are any.
So if, it's already open, so for this evening, if there's anyone else who would like from the public to comment on this? Seeing no one rise, Zoom?
No
Anyone
one's
from
raising
Zoom?
their hand at this
Okay.
time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, we've done that. So at this point, unless there's anything from our city attorney or city manager, I am ready to close the public hearing. Thank you. City Council for comments and further discussion.
I just want to follow up on what I asked Wendy at the beginning. The appellants are asking us to keep in place the approval from October or November of 2020, last year, right? That is already correct?
Right, so the design review approval from November is not the subject of the appeal.
It's the last.
The subject of this appeal is the approval from August of this year.
No, I understand. But what I'm saying is if the approval from last year stood and it just went forward and we did not approve the addition, and then the applicant team wanted to come back with the addition because it was only 164 square feet, according to the municipal code, they wouldn't even have to go to design review, correct?
Well,
Yeah.
So they wanted to make modifications to what was approved back in November. And since what was approved in November was larger than 200 square feet, staff felt it important to bring it back to the commission. Imagine if you were a design review commissioner and you saw what, say, the applicant built what was proposed in August, but that wasn't consistent with what you approved in November of last year. Staff wasn't comfortable just approving that administratively.
No, and I understand that. I was just trying to make the general point that if we denied or upheld the appeal and then the original project was built out, not that this would happen, I'm just trying to make the general point, they could then come back and add what they want to add tonight, and they would not have to go through design review.
Yeah, I apologize, Councilmember Barnett. I didn't understand.
I know it's confusing. I was just trying to make the general point. Okay.
Mr. Felder?
I guess I'm going to cut to the chase. First of all, I do not believe that bringing up historical significance is part of this discussion tonight. It has been through 2 meetings of the Design Review Commission, and in both cases they voted unanimously, and there was no objection that I'm aware of at that time about historical significance. So I'm going to totally dismiss that from my thoughts on what we're talking about tonight. But the more important thing is that I take a look at this project and it meets all of the requirements of the development code. The setbacks are met, the height limitation is met, it's a single-story design, and it's far below the footprint of what's allowed on that property. So it's unfortunate, I guess, if you happen to be a neighbor and somebody's building something on the lot next to you, but when they're within the code of what's allowed and it's a single-story structure, I just can't support an appeal where somebody says, oh, now I can't see part of that tree that I used to see on the other side of the fence from the neighbor's property. Unfortunately for the appellants, there's nothing in the code that says you have to preserve some sight line to see something that's beyond the next lot. And I just don't see any basis for that being a significant reason to appeal this project. So I'm definitely going to vote in denial of the appeal because I think the project satisfies everything that I can tell is required of it, and I think it should be allowed to move forward. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Mayor Agrimonti. I think this is very a common case, conflict, argument between the 2 neighbors. I agree, Bob. If it is compliant with all development code and everything written on the book, we should follow. Also, I appreciate due diligence made by applicant architect, Bob. He was voluntarily offer a lot of the conditions discussed with you. I visited the site. I didn't see too much negative impact on your property. It's the value or it's the light, and also applicant offer some trees, for you, the block the bad and the views for you. And from your side, when we practice local democracy, not only in the code, and also your attitude, your due diligence also is very important. I'm so sorry you missed the last of the meeting. Maybe partially that is the reason why this project got unanimously approved from the design committee. So as to the historical reason, also I agree with Bob. It is not today's topic. So basically, I would like to, make a decision by myself, deny this appeal. I'm so sorry. And one thing I would like to share with you, that is maybe you understand, maybe not. And my understanding is one near the neighbor is a better distant cousin. So sometimes, try to get good wishes, goodwill for your neighbors. We work together and see how we can share this wonderful, community. I know you have a little bit of sacrifice on this project, if not significant. Also, I suggest, applicant discuss with your neighbor again, see what kind of the reasonable request, and then we can get it done, because we are really, really a small community. Thank you so much.
Well, it sounds as if this council, I feel, has come to a decision, and Vice Mayor, did you offer that? Pardon?
Well, can I?
Oh.
Well, I mean,
You got something else here? You want to make?
well, I
a
haven't
motion?
really made my comments.
Oh, I thought you did. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just asking questions.
Oh, sorry. Thanks.
It's okay. Thank you. So, in general, I would like to thank the applicant and also the appellant for taking the time to meet with me. I'd like to thank staff for all their work on this, as well as the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission. When it comes to history, I used to be on Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission, and I do think historic resources are very important. And so I do appreciate Patricia Cullinan bringing this forward. I think it is important to review, although she said she's not supportive of the appeal. She just wants to bring this forward, so we're aware of it. I did view the site and the building, and I, without being a qualified historic resource evaluator, I do think the integrity is it's apparent that the integrity has been lost on this building. But I would appreciate a plaque there, and I do think that it sounds like the applicant is open to something like that. It was very cool to see the sort of historic signage on the north end of the building toward the old railroad. And, while the integrity has clearly been lost, I do think it's important to remember its place in our local history. So while I agree with my fellow council members, it's not completely relevant to this appeal tonight, it is important to know. In terms of the appeal itself, I asked the question earlier because I completely understand where the appellants are coming from. I did view the site from their backyard, and it, obviously in a perfect world, you would not want, you wouldn't want your view from your backyard obstructed in that manner. So while I understand where they're coming from, this project does comply with our code, and I'm trying to think of when I asked, for example, the appellants have asked us to deny this appeal, to uphold the appeal, and so if the applicant was to go forward with building out their project the way they originally was approved, in my view, there would be nothing to stop them from adding 164 square feet per our municipal code. And so considering that, also considering if, not that this is being put forward, but if the historic integrity of the building has been lost, there's nothing to stop a future developer or owner of the property from coming in and absolutely scraping the lot. It is a fairly large lot and deep lot, and with I guess, wisdom in quotes of our governor and state legislature that has recently approved SB 9, there's nothing to stop that lot from being subdivided, and then 2 duplexes and ADUs. I mean, you could have potentially on that lot 6 units, and obviously while that isn't being proposed, I'm trying to balance what could happen at that lot with what is being proposed. And it is 1 story, and you could even perhaps build a 2nd story there by code, and that is not being requested. I understand the landscaping that has been offered by the applicant. I mean, just looking at this, it seems like it would be while not exactly how it is now, it could ultimately be a nice, a nice addition to the backyard. And I don't know if that is still being offered, but that offer is off the table?
Correct.
Okay, wow.
$22,000 have been spent so far.
I understand, okay. So ultimately, well, that's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, I have to balance, the development code is very important because it sort of sets out the rules of the road, and it protects both property owners and neighbors. And in this case, in my view, the property owner and the applicant is complying with the development code. They're not asking for a variance. They're not asking for an exception. It's a 1-story structure, and I will be voting to deny the appeal.
We've had some difficult decisions we've had to make here. One, I think, was on 4th Street East, where these people had a wonderful ranch-style home, and somebody built a 3-story house behind them on a small paper lot. And it's tough. It took away their son. It took away a lot of things. So it's really difficult. And this is what you get when you have a mix of new beginnings. And we had that when we moved in to our neighborhood. And it's really difficult. And but as everyone has shared here, it fits within the parameters. And so I would have to ask for a motion. I will make a move to deny the appeal.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, just a point of clarification before you make your motion, or one of you makes the motion. Just to be clear, the council has the authority to impose conditions of approval, so you can deny the appeal, but when you approve the application, you could say, for example, if you wanted to require the hedge requirement that the applicant has indicated they withdrew. I'm just trying to point out you have that flexibility to impose conditions of approval in your action, if you choose.
Thank you for suggesting that. I have 2 former planning commissioners who might be able to comment on that.
I guess I would comment. I think it's gone beyond the period of time of compromise. I think that the applicant made a fair attempt at compromise to minimize the impact of the structure, and the appellants turned it down, and I think that's history. So I would not add a condition.
The only question I would have is, was that part of the discussion at design review? Were they thinking when they voted 5-0, did they think they were voting for landscaping?
No.
Okay. Well, then in that case, I would agree with Councilman Felder.
So I think I've heard from our 2 former planning commissioners. Would somebody like to make that motion?
I have a question for city manager and city attorney. For the applicant, do they have any further right if they don't agree today's the city council's decision? Do they have any legal way to protect the right and the interest?
If the appellant or applicant?
He means appellant.
You mean the appellants? If the council were to approve this project to deny the appeal, do the appellants have any legal recourse?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they can sue the city.
All right.
This is the final action of this city. And it's that action then that is subject to court review, but that requires a lawsuit to be filed.
And in a further expectation based on your experience during the decades, handle these kind of conflicts between neighbors?
These kind of conflicts produce litigation all the time. It's common that neighbors will sue the city and then their neighbors contending that the city's action was unlawful. That's fairly common.
Thank you.
You know what? I'm going to make a motion to deny the appeal. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
May I have a vote for the council, please?
And this is adopting the resolution, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries
Thank you
unanimously.
for reminding me, City Attorney. So, let's get on.
They had like tons of money both parties.
Yeah.
At this time, I'm moving on to the regular calendar, 6.1. Discussion, consideration, and possible action to adopt a resolution amending something, the public policy for a moratorium on water service connections in areas outside the city limits for consistency with the 2020 urban growth boundary extension, ordinary and confirming delegation to the city manager to implement the policy and execute outside service area agreements with property owners permitted to connect Public Works Director. Oh, thanks.
Thank you,
Thank
Mayor
you.
Agrimonti, members of the council. So this item really has to do with the recent voter-approved extension of the city's urban growth boundary. The staff report provides some history that way back in 1976, the city council did adopt a moratorium on water service connections in areas outside the city limits. So we call that the water connection policy. And then in November 2000, the voters approved a 20-year urban growth boundary. We call that a UGB. And then the council amended that water connection policy in 2001 and 2009. That action is there with all the detail in your staff report. The water connection policy states that no further water main extension may be made and that no new service connections be installed in areas outside the city limits, with 6 listed exceptions. The 6th exception is for small properties 1.5 acres in size with an existing residence and a failing well. So as you know, in November of 2020, the voters approved Measure W, which extended the UGB, or urban growth boundary, for an additional 20 years. That measure directed the city to amend policies affected by the ordinance to ensure consistency between the goals, objectives, and policies adopted in the ordinance and other city policies. The exceptions to the prohibitions against the extension of water service in the existing water connection policy aren't consistent with the new UGB. So we're bringing this item to council today to amend that policy for consistency with the UGB extension ordinance. The proposed policy would retain the exception for small properties with an existing residence and a failing well, but make that size limit much smaller, from 1.5 acres all the way down to 1/4 acre. Based on the other criteria set forth in the proposed policy, providing water service to such properties would not support urban growth outside city limits because these properties are already developed. They can only be developed with a single family residence, And there was a map included in the staff report that showed there's only 2 parcels outside the city limits that would fall within this exception. And the only reason that the council would consider providing such an exception would be to respond to a threat of public health and safety of existing residents, not in the city limits, but outside the city limits. A condition of receiving city water service would be recordation of an outside service area agreement that requires water conservation, prohibits additional building on the property by existing and future property owners, because it would be recorded to run with the property, prohibits subdividing the property, and requires existing and future property owners to indemnify the city for extending water service to the property. Now, a revision to the proposed water connection policy was made after this item was publicly posted, and you received a hard copy of that revised attachments number 2 and 3 at the dais. The revision just deletes item A in the list of exceptions, and that item A that was removed stated the property owner does not own or have an interest in an adjacent parcel of such size that the total size of the 2 parcels is greater than 3 acres, and thus cannot increase the size of the parcel in question by means of a lot line adjustment. So we're proposing to leave that out of the exception and instead add some terms to the outside service area agreement, so that it would state that the property owner shall not subdivide or increase the size of the property, by any means, and shall convey to the city all rights to further develop the property. So that change was made after the item was posted. I just want to point that out. And that's basically the information I wanted to convey in the staff presentation. So staff recommends that the council adopt a resolution amending the policy as revised, the policy on water moratorium on water service connections in areas outside the city limits, for consistency with the 2020 Urban Growth Boundary Extension Ordinance, and also confirm delegation to the city manager to implement the policy and execute outside service area agreements with property owners permitted to connect. And I would be happy to answer any questions
Thank
you may
you.
have.
So are the exceptions still there, or you're changing?
The exceptions are all still there.
Okay.
We just took out the first item that talked about, but if they have an adjacent property that they also own and could do a lot line adjustment and it's 3 acres.
I see.
Instead, we're just saying you can't develop on the property. You can't increase the size of the property, so that, with SB 9, as Councilmember Barnett points out, there's limited local control in some ways on building on a property. So we're just keeping it to no more than a 1/4 acre in size, and not the ability to develop to increase the size of the property or do any further development on the property.
Thank you. Does anyone from the council have a question for our director?
I just want to say, Fergie, that you just saved me from asking the question, because I was going to ask you to delete that paragraph, and I appreciate you taking care of that.
Thank you.
Mr. Barnett?
Yes, I have a question. A member of the public asked me about this, and there was concern about having an exception in here for a fully affordable development per the UGB. And my response to him, and I just wanted you to clarify that, is the UGB policy allows expansion of the UGB to a fully affordable development, correct? And so we wouldn't be doing an exception because that new project would be within the UGB.
Correct.
Okay.
And this doesn't change anything.
Correct, because this is all within the UGB, yeah.
This just changes the city's water connection policy. It changes nothing in the measure. And as you said, the measure provides for affordable housing already.
Right, and so if that new project outside the UGB met all the criteria of Measure W, the new project would have city water because we would be bringing it into the UGB.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You have a question?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. This is definitely related and the UGB Measure W approved. Although technically not directly close, but for sure for all the voters see they made the right decision. So I have a question regarding the residents and out of our service in the area. How many applicants they submit in the paper request for our service?
There have been a handful of them that have come up in the last few years that have requested city water service to properties outside the city limits. None of them, except for this most recent one that's mentioned in the staff report, that does meet the criteria for the exception that's listed here for the amended policy. But the other ones, none of them passed LAFCO. The Local Agency Formation Commission has to approve any water service connections outside the city limits, and any other ones that came out either, or came to my desk, didn't pass my desk or didn't pass LAFCO.
All right, sounds reasonable. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? None? Okay, I'm going to take it out for public comment. Anyone here who would like to address that issue?
Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and City Council members, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Steve Likely. I'm one of the, my family and I are on one of the affected properties, and so just wanted to reassure you we understand the intent of Measure W and the urban growth boundary. We're an existing property. It's been there 20 years. We have no intention, nor could we, build or develop or do anything like that. Simply, this is just to have water. And I would say, I'd like to reassure council that we will be very good stewards of this city's water. And, I think I was reading some of the details in the prior agreement. To the extent the well even has a trickle, we'll use that for irrigation. We've taken all the steps to get rid of high usage plants and things like that. All the appliances and plumbing are water efficient. So we've tried to do everything we can to minimize water usage. So just wanted to reassure you all that we will be good stewards of the water. The only thing that we haven't gotten our heads around would be the indemnification. I have no idea how to size that or what that means or the ramifications, but we very much appreciate your consideration in this. And if you have any questions, I'm here. So.
Did you get this gentleman's last name? Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Tricia Cullinan, I just have a question. I noticed that there's some properties on 8th and East Napa. Does that have water service? I couldn't pull the map up on my phone. Is that part of? It looks like they're building a hotel there.
I know the property that you're talking about where there is a lot of growth going on, or a lot of building going on. And that particular property is on a well. But there are a lot of properties in that general vicinity that are on city water. And I'd be happy to share this map with you. The black dash is the city limits. All the blue out here is outside city limits and on city water.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Fergie, you may for the council just try to explain what you pointed out on the map, on the packet, because I don't think anyone could understand what you were talking about.
Okay, the question was specifically about a large, I don't know if it's a home, but a large building that's being constructed adjacent to East Napa Street, not far from 8th Street East. There's another building going on just a little further west on East Napa Street. That property is on city water, but the really large one is apparently on a well. I saw a lot of well activity out there. Of course, past that property all the time, going to the city's corporation yard on 8th Street East. So there was a lot of activity from well drillers on that property before the construction began.
That wouldn't satisfy the 20 or the quarter acre thing
No.
anyway. It's a huge piece
Yes.
of parcel. Yeah.
Right. And wasn't already built on, you
Right,
know, yeah,
right.
this is only to address a existing health and safety need, not one that's being created. Yeah.
I
Oh,
have-
go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, I have a concern in the future. If this the drought continuously going on in the future, maybe the more and the residents will apply for our city in the water because and wells will be and drier. Yeah. So do you have potentially do you have this kind of the number or because groundwater is getting lower and lower.
Right.
Some
Yeah, so if the council adopted the amended water connection policy with the recommended exceptions, there are only 2 properties currently outside city limits that would meet those exceptions.
okay.
Because they're very small parcels that are already fully developed.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I think we still have Zoom comments, if there's someone out there. Thank you.
We have
Thank
Tom
you.
Conlon.
Oh my God, perfect.
Thank you. I think this strikes me as a good enhancement here. I just had a potential unintended consequence to consider. If I understand it, a parcel that was subdivided to maybe it would be not, maybe it would not be allowed to have water extended, but if it was subdivided, would it to fall below the quarter acre minimum, would that then qualify the property for this this minimum? That was my only question. Thank you.
I guess we'll ask our Public Works Director to step back up.
It would not if we have, for example, a parcel that has 1 acre and there's a home on it, and they subdivided a sliver, so it's less than a quarter of an acre, and that sliver did not have any building on it because the residence was on a larger piece, it would not qualify. Because in order to qualify as an exemption, the residence has to be there now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
There's no one else on Zoom, Madam Mayor.
At this time, close the public hearing. And council discussion. Any other input? Are we looking? What are we doing? So we're.
There's a resolution in
The
the package
resolution.
Right.
that
We'll
Yeah.
calls
actually
out
go
to
to
be
the
acted
resolution.
upon.
So I'm looking for a motion.
I move that we adopt a resolution amending the policy for a moratorium on water service connections in areas outside the city limit for consistency with the 2020 Urban Growth Boundary Extension Ordinance and confirming delegation to the city manager to implement the policy and execute outside service area agreements with property owners permitted to connect.
And do I have a second?
I second.
Oh, just to clarify, the resolution you're adopting and the policy you're adopting is the policy that was suggested as revised by the Public Works Director.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, thank you.
I still second it.
All right, thank you. And may I have a roll call?
Vice Mayor Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, so geez.
That's great.
Okay.
6.2.
Number 6.2, discussion and direction on updates to appointments for ad hoc council subcommittee, city manager and city clerk.
Yeah. So, as you know, the council has ad hoc subcommittees work with staff on key initiatives, policies, and strategies on a limited short-term basis. So at your retreat on September 10th, council and staff, we kind of went through the list of current ad hoc subcommittee, identified those whose work was completed or no longer needed, and identified committees that perhaps would still be needed. And so what we have is the list before you actually has 5 ad hoc subcommittees. 3 are actually the same as before because the work wasn't completed. 2, you could say, are new or expanded, serve an expanded role. So what you have is a committee we call the Broadway Vision Subcommittee. We would need 2 council members appointed to that. We have, and that's an, well, that one is I call it, that would be a new one. And then the Plaza and Depot Park Enhancement and Connectivity Project, that's the same as before in terms of subcommittee. We need 2 people on that. Your Development Code Revision, that's the same as before, but you currently have 2 council members appointed to that, so you'd have to decide if you want to appoint different ones or keep the same, that's fine. Your Legislative Subcommittee actually is I'll call it expanded one. Used to have a Housing Legislative Committee, and this just expands it to all legislation. You would need 2 to that, and then you have a Cemetery Assessment and Strategy Subcommittee, and you currently have 2 members appointed to that. So what we're looking for, assuming these are the 5 ad hoc subcommittees the council would like to move forward with, then we just need assignments to 3 of the committees.
So, are you looking for volunteers? Is that what we're? Yes.
I have a question, Garrett. Is the Casa Grande parking lot thing, which I thought we were going to establish an ad hoc committee for, is that under item, the committee number 2? Do you think that falls within that, or would that be separate?
It can fall
back
under that.
before you became city manager, I think Madeline and I had agreed to serve on a committee to look at the lease of the Casa Grande parking lot.
Okay. Well, you could either create a new one, or you could add it on to the scope of that one.
It's your pleasure.
Yeah, I think we still should have to work on that.
Do you want to just
Add it or
I'm sorry,
add
I'm
one.
listening.
Add
What?
it.
I'm
Do you want
sorry.
it included in number 2, or make a separate one?
A separate.
That's what I meant when I said add. I meant separate.
Oh, yeah, Kelso.
So I guess, yeah, we want to add one more committee that's very specific in its purpose.
And public works planning. Okay, Kelso, did you have something you wanted to add? I wanted to give you that.
Well, depending on I would be more than willing to be on the plaza enhancement and connectivity, and shocker, the Broadway Vision. Might
And I
have
would love
some
to
things
be
to
on
fix on
Broadway
that.
Vision. We could really have a fun time, Kelso.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. We'll ride our bike to City Hall. Yeah.
Right? Oh, God, I'll get one.
Yeah.
So did you hear that, Mr. Toy?
Oh, so I guess what I would suggest is, as council members, you could decide who's going to be on whatever, and then take public comment, and then after that, then we could just clarify who's on which committee.
All right. It didn't seem like anyone jumped at legislation, which is pretty. Maybe we'll get a new council member.
I was going to say maybe we could save that for.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and I will open it now for public comment. Oh, would anyone like to approach the dais? No, and then I'll take it to Zoom.
No one's raising their hand, Madam Mayor.
All right. I close public comment. So, giving us a suggestion. So I'm very interested in Broadway Vision with
Madam Mayor, your mic.
oh, Dawn. Thank you. I'm very interested in Broadway Vision with my partner, Mr. Barnett. I know we'll have fun doing this.
That's right.
We'll have to get a 2-seater.
Yeah. Right.
And I think it looks like Plaza and the other that's taken. Oh, who else? Plaza and did you say, Kelso, you were looking?
I would like to also run Plaza, but anyone else?
Yeah. Is there anyone else interested in the Plaza?
I'm not interested in a Broadway Vision, but you already picked it. It's fine. I will look at another, open.
There's a lot of space under legislation.
Yeah, legislation maybe. What kind of? I really don't know.
But there's now. What happened here with the Plaza and Depot Park? That's
Yeah, Plaza Depot Park. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I like the Plaza Depot Park.
And Bob, do you have anything that you see there?
Well, I would have gone for that one as well, but if we do the Casa Grande, that's enough for me.
Oh, all right. Okay. Do you hear that, all of this, Mr. Garrett?
So I have, let's see, so Broadway Vision is the mayor and councilmember Barnett.
Yes.
Plaza is Vice Mayor Ding and Councilmember Barnett. Casa Grande parking lot is the mayor and Councilmember Felder. Legislation, it was unclear to me. Is that Vice Mayor Ding and someone to be named later?
Yes, I'm a volunteer for this and I learn. Yeah.
And number 5.
I think that's
Take it. That's good.
yeah. I think we're good. And so legislation would just have one, would have the vice mayor, and then, as they say in baseball, a player to be named later.
That sounds good. Well, what are we doing here now? So I think at this point, I think we're done, right?
Yeah,
We should have a motion ratifying those selections,
Oh,
please.
certainly. Thank you. Could I have a motion to ratify these decisions? I'll make a motion.
I would like to make a motion
And yours is a second?
to update to appointments for ad hoc committee. We just, and the city manager just stated. And then I put a motion for approve.
I'll second that.
Well, I got hijacked. I made a motion, and that's okay. I yield to my counsel. Thank you. I feel good about that. And so, may I have a vote, please, counsel?
Vice Mayor Ding,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, let's see. What am I doing? All right, here we are. Council members' reports. The only thing I'd like to just remind everybody that I have dedicated this evening to Sally Vella, Susan Chu, Robert Torrey, and I have no other reports other than I'm on, pardon? I have another one. I'm on zero waste, and you remember there's sort of like a secret going on at Safeway because they were not going to recycle, but I understand there's a sign now for people to line up. You can bring 50 of whatevers. So we're investigating that right now to see if you can bring recyclables there, which I think is great. And maybe we'll actually get our kiosk that we were supposed to get, but there's an investigation going on about that. I'm very excited about it. And that's it for zero waste. Bob?
I attended the Sonoma Valley Citizens Advisory Commission on September 22nd. And there were a couple items on the agenda. There was an addition that was going into the riparian corridor, so that was considered by the commission, and they recommended going ahead with it, but to see if there is some minor modification that could encroach slightly less into that corridor. And then the other item was the Groundwater Sustainability report out to that commission, which I was privileged to hear for a second time tonight. And I don't think I don't have to explain what was in it because you just heard it.
I have a couple
all right.
report. Can I? All right. I attend Sonoma Valley Groundwater Agency and the board meeting last Monday, and basically the Jay Jaspers give us an update. I will not repeat it again. And the one important thing is, we already hired a consultant company to set up a future rate and a fee structure. So that in the future, according to groundwater sustainability in the plan, in the future we need to charge those wells and the owners. So We screened the 3 different consulting company. Finally, we choose the one. I was recommended by the board as liaison for the board to work with the staff and the consulting company. So that is the historic issue, for the future. Well water will be charged soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just future agenda items, if there are any for the council.
Small items, but if you'd like me to share them afterwards, I don't think it's necessary to just publicly, although I will. One, of course, is water. They're still serving water in the restaurants, and I've asked, I think Mark Bodenhammer said he was going to work on tabletops, because I think, they don't have to, they can ask if you would like water. I don't ask for it, and it's always served. I've been to many restaurants here. I think there are 2 properties, 342, 362 Andro, is that how you say it? And they're really a nightmare for neighbors and the hospital. And the other was I asked about amended parklet contract for restaurateurs to report any incidents at their properties. Because I've asked when we've had a couple of one injury and one accident incident, the police chief said, if nobody tells me, I don't know what's going on. So those are 3 of the items I still think are outstanding for me. I don't know if anyone else. Bob?
Just hitchhiking on that, I would like to have a discussion on modifying the parklet situation in town to impose design conditions and other conditions like perhaps paying for some of that public space that they're being allowed to use.
Anything else here? No.
Well, just briefly, I'm just curious if there was like a status update in terms of updating that cemetery report. If any updates on that?
No updates, but I think as the council know, you had requested with your goals, which
Right.
some of these are your goals, that we come back to you with a work plan that kind of lays out where we're at with the different things, and it'll give you an idea of where we're at. One of which is the parklet discussion that has designs and what you would like to do in the parklets moving forward in the future. The other is the cemetery assessment strategy. So we'll be coming forward with that to you, if not the next meeting in October, be your first meeting in November.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Just lobbying for a movement of priority.
And Bob, it's interesting. Thank you for bringing up the issue of the parklets, because one of the things I have found is, in spite of accidents, 2 in particular have happened. It's not Mr. Toy's fault. He wasn't even here. It wouldn't have been your fault if you were here. But nobody reports them. So when I spoke to the police chief, the man was taken in an ambulance that was hurt, and nobody reports it. So I guess it's sort of like the secret. And so I would like to see if we can't amend that and to include reporting from the restaurateurs, unless that's not the process that you think is appropriate. I don't know who might be. All right, thank you. I think that's it. Yep. So everybody's ready for an adjournment? Oh, I'm city attorney. No. Are you sure you can't share some wisdom with us? Like, don't spit in the wind or something? Okay. All right. Good night, everybody. We're adjourning. I can't believe I just said that.